Picture this. It is March 2026. A war is raging across the Middle East. American jets are bombing Iranian targets. Iranian drones are hitting Allied bases. Ships are burning in the Strait of Hormuz. Oil is past $100 a barrel. A French soldier is dead. 6 Americans are missing. The global economy is shaking. And in the middle of all of it, in the middle of the fire and the smoke and the chaos, the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, looks into a camera. His face is calm. His voice is steady. He is not panicking. He is not reassuring. He is delivering a message, and the message is this: I just want to say, I'm alive, and you're all witnesses. Then he pauses, and then he says something that no Western leader has said out loud in the modern era. Jesus Christ has no advantage over Genghis Khan, because if you are strong enough, ruthless enough, powerful enough, evil will overcome good. He said it clearly. He said it deliberately. And he meant every single word. Guess which part of that statement the American media is ignoring? And I am going to make it personal. You watch this war get sold to you as a moral necessity. You watch the administration frame it as good versus evil, democracy versus theocracy, freedom versus tyranny, light versus darkness. You saw every justification wrapped in the language of righteousness, of liberation, of protecting the world from a nuclear threat. And now you are watching the man whose government co-launched the first strikes, the leader whose intelligence services helped select the targets whose military is operating alongside American forces right now. Tell the entire world on camera that evil overcomes good if you are ruthless enough. Is that the statement of an ally fighting for shared values? Or is it the confession of a man who just told you exactly what this war is about and assumed you were not paying attention? Stay with me, because this story was not reported the way it deserved to be. And what Netanyahu revealed in those 2 sentences is the part that should rewrite how you understand everything that has happened since February 28th. Let that land for a moment. Before we even get to the Genghis Khan statement, sit with those opening words. I just want to say I'm alive. And you're all witnesses. That is not a greeting. That is not a press statement. That is the language of a man who believes he is operating in biblical or historical proportions. A man who sees himself not as a politician managing a crisis, but as a figure whose survival itself is a message to civilization. You're all witnesses. Witnesses to what? To his survival, to his endurance, to the fact that despite everything, the war, the international pressure, the ICC warrants, the domestic opposition, the assassination concerns, he is still here, still in power, still giving orders, still alive. That framing is deliberate. It positions Netanyahu not as one leader among many, but as a singular figure whose very existence is an event that the world must acknowledge. And it sets up the statement that follows. Because if you have already accepted the premise that his survival is historically significant, the philosophical declaration that comes next carries the weight he intends it to carry. Now let me break down what he actually said, because this is not a throwaway line. This is not a gaffe. This is not a politician misspeaking under pressure. This is a carefully constructed philosophical statement from a man who has spent his entire career choosing words with precision. He named Jesus Christ, the foundational moral figure of Western civilization, the symbol of sacrificial goodness, of turning the other cheek, of the meek inheriting the earth. And he named Genghis Khan, history's most ruthless conqueror, a man who built an empire on slaughter, who razed cities to the ground, who killed an estimated 40 million people and reshaped the genetic landscape of an entire continent through violence. And Netanyahu said Christ has no advantage over Khan. No advantage. The embodiment of mercy has no advantage over the embodiment of conquest. Why? Because if you are strong enough, ruthless enough, powerful enough, evil will overcome good. He broke on diplomatic language years ago when he stopped pretending Israel's military operations were purely defensive. He broke on international law when he ignored ICJ rulings. He broke on humanitarian norms when civilian casualties mounted. And now he has broken on the foundational moral premise of the Western world itself, the idea that good ultimately prevails over evil. He did not just reject that premise, he inverted it. He said evil wins. If you have have enough power. But here is the part that should make every American lean forward. This is the man whose government is America's closest partner in this war. This is the leader whose intelligence services provided targeting data for Operation Epic Fury. This is the prime minister whose military is flying alongside American jets over Iran right now. And he just told the world, on camera, for the record, in his own words, that his operating philosophy is that ruthlessness defeats righteousness and power defeats morality. Now, before you say this is being taken out of context, that Netanyahu was making a broader philosophical point about the nature of power in an immoral world, you are right, in the narrowest possible sense. Leaders sometimes speak in abstractions. Sometimes philosophical musings get clipped into sound bites that distort the intended meaning. That is a fair caution. But here is what mainstream coverage buried. Netanyahu did not say this in a philosophy seminar. He did not say it in a private conversation that was leaked. He said it in a public message to the world, prefaced by, "I'm alive and you're all witnesses," in the middle of a war that has killed civilians, destroyed hospitals, created black rain over cities of millions, and displaced populations across the Gulf. When a wartime leader says evil overcomes good if you are ruthless enough, in the middle of conducting military operations that have produced massive civilian suffering, that is not philosophy. That is doctrine. That is a man telling you his operating system. And when journalists and analysts immediately flagged the statement, when the reaction across international media was shock, no American official responded. Not the White House, not the State Department, not a single member of Congress. The president who launched this war alongside Netanyahu did not distance himself from the statement, did not affirm that American values are different, did not say anything at all. And that silence is itself a statement, because when your war partner says, "Evil defeats good," and you say nothing, you are not disagreeing, you are co-signing. Now, here's the historical lesson that changes everything. Leaders who tell you who they are should be believed. When Putin said the collapse of the Soviet Union was the greatest geopolitical catastrophe of the 20th century, people treated it as nostalgia. It was a mission statement. When Xi Jinping said reunification with Taiwan is a historical inevitability, people treated it as rhetoric. It was a timeline. When leaders speak in philosophical absolutes about power and morality, about who wins and why, they are not musing. They are revealing the framework that drives their decisions. And most people have never heard Netanyahu's statement analyzed through that lens, because the Western media ecosystem is structurally incapable of processing the idea that an allied leader, a leader the United States is currently fighting alongside, just articulated a worldview that is fundamentally incompatible with every value the West claims to represent. This is precisely why the Genghis Khan comparison matters. Genghis Khan did not build an empire by winning hearts and minds. He built it by destroying everything in his path. Every city that resisted, every population that defied him, every structure that existed before he arrived. When Netanyahu says Genghis Khan's approach works, that ruthlessness and power overcome goodness, he is endorsing a model of warfare and governance that the post-World War II international order was specifically designed to prevent. The Geneva Conventions, the United Nations, the International Criminal Court, the entire architecture of international humanitarian law, all of it was built in response to the Genghis Khan model. All of it says, no, evil does not get to win just because it is powerful. And Netanyahu just said, yes, it does. This is precisely why Iran's information strategists are already amplifying this clip across every platform on earth. Because Tehran does not need to fabricate propaganda when the enemy's own ally is saying on camera that evil wins through ruthlessness. The clip speaks for itself. And it will be played in every mosque, every parliament, every university, every media outlet in the global south for years, not as Iranian propaganda, as Netanyahu's own words. Here is something that surprises us every time we check the numbers. About 90% of people watching this video right now are not subscribed to this channel. And here is why that matters for this specific story. Content that critically analyzes statements by Israeli leadership, even when those statements are public, on camera and undeniable, get systematically suppressed by algorithms designed to avoid controversy. This kind of analysis disappears unless you subscribe. You have already done the hard part. You watch this far. The easy part is one click. It tells the system that honest engagement with uncomfortable truths matters more than sanitized narratives. Let's keep going. Now connect the dots, because these stories are not separate. They are the same story. Joe Kent, a decorated Green Beret, a Gold Star husband, a MAGA loyalist, resigned from Congress this week, stating publicly that this war started because of pressure from Israel and its U.S. lobby. He said Iran posed no imminent threat. He said the America First movement had been betrayed. And now, days later, the Prime Minister of Israel, the leader whose pressure Kent described, goes on camera and tells the world that evil overcomes good through ruthlessness and power. Kent said this war was for Israel. Netanyahu just told you what Israel's philosophy of war is. Evil wins if you are strong enough. Ruthlessness defeats righteousness. Genghis Khan's model works. Connect those two statements and ask yourself, is this the ally that American soldiers are dying for? Is this the philosophy that American taxpayers are funding? Is this the moral framework that justifies black rain over Tehran, destroyed hospitals, contaminated water supplies, $3.60 gas, and 6 missing service members? And then a journalist, because it is always a journalist who asks what politicians will not, posed the question that nobody in Washington wanted to hear. The question was put to the State Department. Did the United States have any response to Prime Minister Netanyahu's statement that evil overcomes good if you are ruthless enough? Since this war began on February 28, 2026, the following statements and actions from Israeli leadership have been documented. Netanyahu publicly stated that evil overcomes good through strength and ruthlessness, confirmed by broadcast footage and reported by multiple international outlets. He compared the moral legacy of Jesus Christ unfavorably to the conquests of Genghis Khan. Same source, same footage, undeniable. He prefaced the statement with, "I'm alive and you're all witnesses," framing his survival as historically significant in a manner consistent with messianic or civilizational self-positioning. No American official has publicly responded to or distanced the United States from the statement, confirmed by the absence of any White House, State Department, or congressional response in the public record. Joe Kent resigned from Congress citing Israeli pressure as the cause of the war, confirmed by his public letter reported by Politico, AP, and the Washington Examiner, and the war that Israel co-launched has produced documented civilian casualties, hospital destruction, environmental contamination, and a global energy crisis, confirmed by Reuters, BBC, AP, WHO, and ICRC reporting. These are documented events with sources, not interpretations, not spin. The words came out of his mouth, the camera was rolling, and the world heard them. The generation that remembers every American leader since 1945 affirming that the Western alliance is built on moral foundations, on the belief that democracy is better than tyranny, that human rights matter, that the strong have obligations to the weak, that good does ultimately prevail. That generation just watched the leader of America's closest war partner say the opposite, on camera, during a war, and heard nothing from Washington in response. Here is the question that matters now. Netanyahu told the world his philosophy. Evil overcomes good. Ruthlessness wins. Genghis Khan's model works, and America is fighting alongside him right now. Option A, the statement was rhetorical excess. Netanyahu was making an abstract point about the nature of power, not articulating operational doctrine. Israeli policy remains grounded in security imperatives, not in a belief that evil should triumph. The Western alliance is strong enough to absorb uncomfortable rhetoric from a wartime leader under immense pressure. American values and Israeli values may diverge on philosophy, but converge on strategy. 3 things support this view. Leaders often speak in extremes during war. Netanyahu has a documented history of provocative rhetoric that does not always predict policy. And the U.S.-Israel relationship has survived previous rhetorical crises. Option B, the statement was honest. Netanyahu told you exactly what he believes, and his beliefs are driving a war that America is paying for in blood and treasure. The philosophy he articulated, that ruthlessness defeats righteousness, that power is its own justification, that evil wins, is not compatible with the values that the United States claims to represent. And the fact that not a single American official responded means either they agree and cannot say so, or they disagree and are too afraid to say so. 3 things support this view. The statement was public and deliberate. It aligns with documented Israeli military conduct in multiple conflicts and the complete absence of American pushback signals, institutional acceptance of a worldview that should be rejected by any democracy. Vote in the poll below. Because the answer to this question does not just define the U.S.-Israel relationship. It defines whether the moral framework that the West has claimed to represent since 1945 is real, or whether it was always just the story the powerful told while operating exactly the way Netanyahu just described. That is where we are. The Prime Minister of Israel told the world that evil overcomes good. He said it clearly. He said it calmly. He said it on camera. And the leader of the free world, the man fighting alongside him, the man whose soldiers are dying in a war that a resigned congressman says Israel pushed for, said nothing. If this breakdown helped you see what was actually said and what it actually means, subscribe, share it with someone who needs to hear the words that came out of Netanyahu's mouth, and I will see you in the next one. Stay sharp.